Hello, welcome to Economic Divide. I'm Kaveh Ali. In today's program, we're going to take a look at crypto world, in particular Bitcoin. Why are central banks so worried about cryptocurrency as a whole? Some of the highlights of today's program: what is Bitcoin? We're going to define that for you. What is cryptocurrency? What is blockchain? And you hear about mining. What is that? What actually determines the worth of cryptocurrency? And what is the big deal anyways? Is it worth the investment? Also, we'll also take a look at governments in particular and their central banks. They want you to believe that everything is cool, that they're still under control. But are they scrambling to play catch up, or are they trying to see how they can maybe control it, or maybe they're just looking for ways to undermine it, like the US Fed or the European Central Bank? Then we're going to take a look at crypto enlisting, like Coinbase. It got listed at NASDAQ. Also, Bitcoin got listed a few years back, not the coin itself, but then they're dangerous because the Dow took a correction. So, pretty much a risky bet, wouldn't you say? And what is this? Elon Musk, Tesla creator, entrepreneur, and billionaire, dancing. But Bitcoin crash. Is he dancing about that? Well, he had some killer tweets that led to the crash. However, he then focused on Dogecoin. Is that his new bet now?
Cryptocurrencies took a big hit recently. A massive crash in cryptocurrency prices wiped out $1 trillion of wealth. Bitcoin, the biggest and most popular cryptocurrency, plunged 50% to its lowest level since January, hitting a low of nearly $30,000. Meanwhile, other popular digital currencies tanked as well. Ether and Dogecoin both declined by 25 to 30% as well. The swing in the cryptocurrency market came after China reportedly banned banks from cryptocurrency business. The U.S. also announced a crackdown by the Department of Justice and the IRS, expressing concerns that cryptocurrencies are being used to conceal illegal transactions.
We will not allow digital asset service providers to operate in the shadows and will not tolerate the use of the cryptocurrencies in support of illicit activities.
One sign that cryptocurrencies are giving real money a run for the money, so to speak, is that they are actually being listed in the stock markets. Now take the listing of San Francisco-based Coinbase. Coinbase became one of the biggest U.S. cryptocurrency exchanges. The owner recalls his early days.
Yes, it's scary because it's new and there are new security concerns that need to be addressed with it, but that's sort of where I see Coinbase coming in. It's the sort of consumer-friendly front.
So Coinbase is the NASDAQ for cryptocurrencies. And what you have to think about is, there's tons of cryptocurrencies. And the question is, how do you trade against that? And that's what Coinbase does. And they did a lot of business. They did $1.8 billion worth in Q1 alone.
They have almost 56 million users, only 4 million of them active, monthly activities. So 4 million, about 7% of them, they are really making these kind of activities on the exchange. 56% of the trades of the $335 billion is done with two types of cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin and Ethereum.
Now you hear Bitcoin there. Well, Bitcoin also made its debut on a major stock exchange back in the year 2017. Well, the coin itself did not make its debut. It was introduced as a futures contract. A futures contract is a financial product that allows investors to bet on whether the currency's price will rise or fall. Now at that time, Bitcoin opened at $15,000 per unit at the Chicago Board Options Exchange.
So we here at CBOE view cryptocurrencies as a new asset class, and as such we think that it's ready for derivatives, and that's why we've chosen to list futures on Bitcoin. We think that it brings some needed regulation to the Bitcoin marketplace, and it gives people who have concerns around custody of Bitcoin or the process of opening wallets, gives them access to Bitcoin in a more traditional form.
Okay, it's time to ask a fundamental question here. That question is, what is the purpose of digital currency? That is a simple enough question, isn't it? Well, let's go to China to find out the answer to that question. Here is the BOAO, Forum for Asia in Henan Province, China. It brought together a host of professionals, figures like Zhu Jianchuan, ex-governor of China's central bank.
各个国家还有各个国家的需求， 现在呢，我们可以做长远的设想，说未来全球这个货币可能会有像一体化呀，也没有那么多复杂的汇率问题，向这个方向去发展可以，但是现在来讲还不行。
In this segment, we have a Q&A with Miguel Francis Santiago. He's the founder and CEO of the Future Is Now Media Group. Miguel, welcome to the program. We are looking at the notion of cryptocurrencies and digital money, which is still foreign to some, just like the beginning days of internet. So if you can please explain the technology to us, how it operates, especially when it comes, its, I guess, comparison when it's being made to real money.
Well, it operates by creating an alternative store of value and also a store of transactions where you do not have to resort to a centralized banking system to help you get that done, either to store your value, your money, or to transact with your value, your money. By having a decentralized ledger technology as the underlying building block of it, composed of many nodes all over the world, to enable this system to work. That is why it takes time for the hash to go through the system and for the money to transact. And that is why sometimes when the system is overloaded, although we are in the inception ages, I mean, we're literally taking baby steps right now. Even though Bitcoin has, surpassed the all-time high of 20K, and we saw the all-time high of 63K this year, as compared to its previous bull run in 2018, we're still in baby steps.
Okay, thank you so much for that. We do appreciate it, Miguel. All right, we're headed for a quick break here on Economic Divide, but don't go anywhere. We have plenty more coming up. Stay right where you are. But before we go for the break, here's one family that has taken the crypto craze to a whole new level. They abandoned the traditional way of life, whether it's work or their kids' schooling, to live a crypto lifestyle.
I think the people are blind by this. Yeah, we live solely on Bitcoin as much as possible, and we've tried to live in places where like the Bitcoin is accepted a little bit more. So like where there is a restaurant and a hotel that accept Bitcoin, that's more easy for us.
Then we don't need to go to school, and we don't need to stand up at 8 o'clock in the morning.
It's time for our in-depth section. Let's take a look at Bitcoin when it started out. Essentially, when it did, it was in the year 2009, and it was worth 0.008 cents of a dollar. Imagine that. And then it went to 8 cents per dollar, which shot up 900%. Then in February of 2011, it hit parity with the dollar, which meant that it was worth $1, and has not looked back since. It peaked at $19,783 in December of 2017. Now, the current price, as of May 29, it stands at roughly around, you're going to see that in a second, $36,000, May of 2021. And it has been extremely volatile after the crash. There was a crash. Take a look at the price when it hit the high. It was $61,783. Now just think if you had purchased one back when it was just 8 cents or even less, just imagine how much profits you would have made. Well, now comes the functioning part of cryptocurrencies, how they work. By now you might have read up on it, but here are the facts for those who either don't understand it or are just plain in the dark about it. Okay. As we know, Bitcoin is an online currency. As I've mentioned, it's created from computer codes, and it has been in circulation since 2009. The identity of its creator remains a mystery. It has no connection to a central bank and is not backed by any government. Instead, its community of users control and regulate it via what's called the blockchain. Basically, it's a mathematical process to provide anonymous and secure transfers.
So Bitcoin is a decentralized cryptocurrency. It's purely internet-based. That's part of the appeal to a lot of people because it's decentralized. It's not controlled by any central government, and it can be traded, across currencies in the same way that that fiat currencies can.
Okay, to get started, you create what's called a Bitcoin. You have to actually create that. It generates an address which is unique to each transaction, which can then be used to buy goods and services or other currencies. As each transaction then becomes validated by members of the community, and that's done by tracing the origin of each Bitcoin using special software. This is what's called mining. Now, to make sure that no single Bitcoin can be spent in more than one place simultaneously, which is one of the most important things about Bitcoin and currencies, digital currencies. Now, the fastest to do so are issued with new Bitcoins, and as a result, they're rewarded for their efforts. Now, let's move on to the question here. Does Bitcoin use too much energy? Well, mining requires enormous processing power. I mean, you wouldn't believe how much power it takes. You have powerful computers who are consuming huge amounts of electricity, some as much as a country. It is estimated that in 2021, Bitcoin's annual consumption could actually climb to 128 terawatt hours, that is. That's 0.6% of world electricity production, or 10 times more than Google, if you can believe that. Now, there are giant data centers or huge mining factories. In terms of their location, you're looking at China, 65% of them, 6.9% in Russia, and then in the US, 7.2%. Now, critics like China and even Tesla's Elon Musk point to the environmental impact that the electricity generates through mining regions, which contributes to things like climate change. Well, let's bring in Keith Pilbeam for this segment. He's a professor of international economics and finance at City University in London. Maybe he can shed more light on this topic. Keith, welcome. When we take a look at Bitcoin in terms of what it does, digital currencies as a whole, Bitcoin to be one of them, it is said that it's the future. It's the way that perhaps dollar is going to be replaced, and of course it's going to be used for transactions, but the key appeal being that central governments, and in particular central banks, don't control them. What are your thoughts on that? And do you agree with the future of Bitcoin in terms of its efficiency?
Well, I think there's a fundamental misunderstanding here. Bitcoin is not going to become a global currency, all right, in the same way that the US dollar. There's no chance of that happening. The US authorities, of course, central banks may produce their own digital currencies that are counterparts to their national currencies. But as I say, Bitcoin can be traded amongst those that want to trade it, but most people don't accept it.
All right, Keith there and his take on Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. Our next focus, billionaire Elon Musk. You either love him or hate him, depending on whether he was a reason for you to make money or lose money, as was the case with some of his tweets, which caused crypto mayhem and a crypto crash.
He may be a bit odd, quirky perhaps, but make no mistake, he's a genius by some standards for his accomplishments. After all, you don't become the world's richest man worth billions of dollars by accident. And he must wield some power if one tweet can send the price of a crypto coin skyrocket or crash, as was the case with Bitcoin. This is the tweet that sent the price of Bitcoin crashing. He also then said that cryptocurrencies cannot come as a cost to the environment.
Musk has been one of the cheerleaders, the biggest proponents of Bitcoin, and for 3 months later, for him to start to cite environmental issues, which have not changed in the last 3 months, it's something where this U-turn is definitely not being taken well by investors in the crypto market.
His car company Tesla revealed in February it had bought $1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin. The company later said it had trimmed its position by 10% in the first quarter. Now, his love affair is with Dogecoin. He called Dogecoin the people's crypto. But a market that can sink based on a person's tweet? This is a classic case of extreme volatility, which prevents cryptocurrency growth while detracting investors.
Elon had a very short affair with Bitcoin. I guess he didn't realize who he married. I know that Tesla stands for green cars and electric cars and so on, but those cars consume exactly the same electricity that Bitcoin consumes. So I think it was a premature divorce.
Maybe it's better that he pay attention to his own recommendation, which he tweeted here.
Hello and welcome to the Info News section. Now the first item that we're going to take a look at, which caught our attention from this past week, was from right here in Iran. In terms of what has happened, well, in regards energy, Iran has banned crypto mining. Now you may ask, obviously, why Iran decided to do that. Well, unfortunately, what has happened is that because of crypto mining, you've had electricity outages and shortages that happened not only in the capital, but around the country. That's how much energy crypto mining actually uses. And in terms of the world, 4.5% of all Bitcoin mining takes place in Iran, 4.5%. So that gives you an idea as to how much crypto mining occurs right here in the Islamic Republic. Next up, Total demo, not a total demo, Total, as in the oil or petroleum company. It's been accused of ecocide, human rights violations, and also greenwashing. Why? Well, fossil fuel projects in Uganda is the reason. It has actually affected 178 villages there in Uganda. So again, you have an oil company that's being accused of things like climate change or factors that affect or contribute to climate change. This particular item is very interesting. Declining population is something that needs to be looked at. Fewer babies' cries, more abandoned homes, and deaths exceed births. That's actually taken from a headline on this. Basically, we're looking at a declining population because countries are confronting what's called population stagnation and a fertility bust. So you're having a decrease in population, which could lead to complication in a wide variety of arenas. This may be a topic for our future program. And finally, enough of capitalism. Yeah, we've heard that before, but obviously it's very hard to follow. Why? Endless economic growth is not good. Now, why would that not be good? The reasons are many, as you're about to see over here. Extraction, production, and consumption, that can be harmful. It can affect the environment. You have plastic bags that carry, shopping bags that carry goods, etc. These all affect the human life in one way or another. So those were some of the top stories. We always like to hear from you. If you want to contribute to a topic to the program, do send it to us to our email address, the old-fashioned way. We'd love to hear from you. Now, decentralization is one thing. Evading central government's banking system so that they can't control how we spend our money. But when an entire country is placed under sanctions, especially a central bank, that is a totally different story. Countries under heavy U.S. sanctions have taken matters into their own hands, the crypto way. Okay, let me bring back Keith Pilbeam for this segment. Keith, many sanction-hit countries like Venezuela, Russia, and of course Iran, they have welcomed the use of cryptocurrencies in order to evade the illegal U.S. sanctions. China has developed its own digital yuan. Are we looking at the dollar being replaced at some point due to the rise of these cryptocurrencies?
There's no danger of the US dollar being replaced by digital currencies. There will be a digital dollar, I've got no doubt about that over time, and that will complement the existing dollar, as there will be eventually, a digital euro and probably a digital pound. But these will just be equivalent to the national currencies, and there needs to be very careful monitoring and mechanisms, but they will be widely accepted as a use of payment, okay? Now, lots of people are thinking that these coins are going to replace currencies. They're not. They may complement. Some people will have good use and they can be used, but don't forget, over time, it's getting easier to transfer money at very low rates, and it's not so cheap. If you want to transfer money in Bitcoin, there are various fees and there's an awful lot of risk, all right? A lot of people don't realize that at any moment, if you don't hold your money in what they call a cold wallet, and it's held on an exchange, your account could be blocked. The exchange might just block it. So people have to be very careful in the way they're managing their money.
Let's find out what Miguel Francis Santiago thinks, the founder and CEO of the Future Is Now Media Group. Miguel, welcome back. Do you agree with what Keith said in terms of the crypto and the dollar? I mean, first of all, when it comes to the countries like Venezuela, Russia, and Iran, they're replacing or they're going with crypto and they've welcomed it in order to evade the illegal U.S. sanctions. But will cryptocurrencies overall lead eventually to the replacement of the dollar from transactions, do you think?
Well, we're getting the U.S. digital dollar. I mean, we are going to see the dollar replaced, but it's not going to be replaced in the modern sense. It's by anything better than what is already there. If a centralized government authority is giving me a monetary system of exchange that's based on the blockchain, I'm not going to take that. I feel that that is absolutely, it's ludicrous to think that this is even, it has nothing to do with cryptocurrencies. I mean, these are centralized tools of control being perpetuated by central governments like digital dollar, digital yuan, and sure, digital euro, they will probably replace the reserve paper dollar, but the whole point in that is only because I'll just say the status quo is getting rid of paper money. That's the only reason that that's happening, because all of a sudden you can now have this whole la-la land fabricated bubble system of government bonds instead of on paper, on a digital blockchain trackable ledger. And that is not good for the masses. That is not good for the people. If anything, that's very good for a COVID passport and potentially using that technology to be stored on your COVID passport, if it may be a digital card or a digital chip, whatever, then that supposedly will, be sold to you as a way to cut through the layer of governance, to cut through the bureaucracy under the guise of innovation. But in reality, that's you giving up your freedom ultimately to a government blockchain.
From Russia to Venezuela to China and to Iran, cryptocurrencies have an appeal. The main reason? To evade U.S. sanctions.
My sense of cryptocurrency is largely driven to evade U.S. sanctions and to undermine sovereign currencies. Both of them are a challenge to the national interests of the United States.
We need to search for unconventional solutions. These are the people who will build our new future and live there.
Let's not forget, they are illegal, hence the appeal. Each country uses it to get around the sanctions. But there is another hope behind using the cryptocurrencies, to replace the US dollar as the common currency.
Yo creo que la razón por la que los venezolanos han aprendido rápidamente a usar las criptomonedas es para proteger su dinero de la inflación y para poder tener acceso a un mercado global que ahorita con el control de cambio no lo tenemos.
China has adopted its own digital currency called the digital yuan. It is already being used on a wide scale. Only time will tell whether that can eliminate the dollar along with other digital currencies.
Digital currencies like Bitcoin or Dogecoin or many others, they are here to stay. There is no doubt about that. You've heard our guests. Now, whether that is a good thing or not, well, that is the question. Let's look at this from another angle. For example, pretend if you were a Syrian or an Iraqi and your country was getting bombed. Obviously, you wouldn't like that. Well, central governments control the money supply, money to wage wars. That is a fact, hence the appeal of cryptocurrencies. Now, the downside, there are laws that citizens are breaking, like ones who are kidnapping or drug lords, for example, or tax evaders. They love cryptocurrencies. Did I say tax evaders? Well, consider this. Tax evasion remains a problem to this day. And countries committing the most tax evasions, the ones holding the biggest central banks, they're the ones, like in the US and in the UK, for example. Well, all that I have said really is nothing new. But what will be new is when crypto usage becomes so mainstream that it leaves central governments without the power that they once had, the power that controlled our lives one way or another. And that could affect their decision in terms of policies, which requires capital from foreign policy to you name it. That does it for this edition of Economic Divide. Your questions and comments are always welcome. It was a pleasure to have you. Until next time, I'm Kaveh Tawai. It's goodbye.